No, it all makes sense now, doesn't it? I hope you guys are ready for a big Friday show. There's too much happening as usual, but it started a little bit slow for me this morning. I was a little, I've been in such a frantic pace on the back end um, of me coming in and jumping in here just to make it on time because I'm still trying to hold on to a week's long, I think, on time start for me since, last week or maybe the week before that was a disaster. I'm trying to make up for it a little bit. But someone in the chat just said, before we get started, I have to tell you guys this really fast. Someone in the chat just said that they forgot that it's Friday the 13th. I did too, but only an hour into said Friday the 13th, my day started, and man, it started wildly. And when I say an hour into Friday the 13th, I mean 1 o'clock in the morning on this Friday. I wake up to knocking at at the front door. I wake up to doorbells being rung multiple times at said front door. But before I even heard any of that stuff, what I also heard was a loud German Shepherd, which lives in my house, which I'm very used to since we raised since a puppy here, barking her ass off, angry, saying, "Who the fuck is this at the front door, at the door, running into the room, letting us know, hey, check it out, something's happening at the front door." That's how my Friday the 13th started. I've kind of been up ever since. I went back to sleep after 2 hours or so, but you never really fully go right back to sleep. What it turned out to be, by the way, beating on the door. I mean, it was loud. Beating on the door, dogs barking, ready to attack. um, was just a simple DoorDash delivery driver trying to deliver some food to my house. In fact, I'll give you more direct. It was 12:58 a.m. um just a woman, and I think, as my wife told me later, she saw, through later, also maybe her young teenage daughter with her, two folks beating on the door of the wrong house trying to deliver some food, apparently. I think. I'm not sure. Who really knows? Good thing I've got all kinds of you won't really make it very far in my house, just to let you know, if it gets past to that point. Anyways, just want to let you guys know why I'm in such a frantic energy right now, but also at the same time, it is still Friday, and I found something new. I found something new. Check it out. Let me see. It's another monster, but it's voodoo grape. Hey, Mardi Gras is coming up, so I think maybe that's the reason why you have to try something new. Here, it's gonna be loud. There it goes. I'll let you guys know how it goes as we get started. But I at least want, as we go through this hour of this stream today, and hope you guys go ahead and like the stream, subscribe, also share it. As we go through this, I just want to give you guys an update as the reasons why I just might be a little bit off kilter today. I might be a little bit, missing some points here on my firing order in my brain. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I should launch an investigation into that delivery driver with her young kid showing up at the door at 1 o'clock in the morning, delivering food. Come on, bro. Come on, man. I guess I'm deep in the conspiracy theories as of now. Let's go ahead and get started. I just want to give you guys that little glimpse into how my Friday began. But I think it's going to end better because we're exposing people. We're pointing out the way this administration is. We need to understand where the normalization of Nazism, fascism, and white supremacy comes in our society. And it all starts with people that they're putting in government, or trying to, at least in this case. This was a back and forth discussion between Jeremy Carl, who's Trump's nominee for Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations, and Chris Murphy, Democrat Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy many times is on the right side of these things. And this particular exchange, he was definitely on the right side of it. But pay attention to what Jeremy Carl believes the outlook on life should be in this country.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and
The nominee there, Jeremy Carl, pointed out white culture. But he included things like Irish, and specifically Irish and Italian. I guess he forgot how Irish folks and Italian folks were treated as they were immigrants coming to this country, many decades ago, because he's now including them in his white supremacist screed about how he has this outlook on life and the way things should be in this country. It's like they're ignorant and don't understand anything. It's also a prerequisite to be such a white supremacist, ignorant bastard like this guy is. They continued on.
Yeah, but you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music,
are being
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased.
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized, and I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
Well, I'm way over my time. I think you're struggling to answer this question, right? Because underlying your beliefs is a sentiment that white culture is just simply better.
I think Chris Murphy kind of nailed that down there. The whole purpose that this guy has is saying white supremacists is what this standard should be for this administration, which it has been. That's why he keeps nominating people like this. That's why he's got people in place already that are doing this same type of approach to their lives. I mean, look at Pete Hegseth. Look at Donald F. and Trump. Look at Stephen Miller. Look at Steve Bannon, who's supporting this. Everyone that's surrounding and pushing this administration has this same belief, but very specifically, what it is that they're grilling him on outside of his, racism, is how he thinks, therefore, this white culture is being replaced. You can't go to white churches anymore. White churches are different than black churches, and therefore, because of it, we can't find any good lily white churches anymore. He brought up the Super Bowl with Bad Bunny. Listen, they're connecting all of these things, these big time direct accusations, these whinings about the Super Bowl. We already knew it, but he's just putting it into words. They're upset because they don't want to see anyone else, but what they see is white people and their apparent culture to not be subdued and erased by seeing anything else. Tell me you're not like an insecure, sorry, sumbitch without saying you're an insecure, sorry, sumbitch. Bro, if you've got your culture that you love so much and you want your white food and your white churches and your white music, bro, listen to it, go to it, and eat it. I don't understand how they think anybody's taking this from him, or they're realizing that people enjoy other things and they want to have control over everyone else. I feel like that's probably the problem. But he spoke to other folks, another senator here, Cory Booker, asked him more specifically with this replacement theory that he's got. Again, these used to be things that people would hide their beliefs behind, but Donald Trump has given them free rein to now present it in front of Congress.
What do you mean when you say that you believe in the great replacement theory?
Senator, thank you for that question. This refers to the intentional demographic replacement of Europeans in Europe. It was invented by Renaud Camus, who was a French scholar.
You think there's an active effort to, quote unquote, replace Americans right now?
Senator, I think the Democratic Party, through its immigration policies, has certainly shown signs of that.
And I don't understand that. So you are saying that if more Americans are Black or Latino Americans, that somehow weakens America because it puts whites in a minority. What do you mean when you say
that's the fear, Cory? That's the fear. They're afraid of being minorities versus anyone else, like the collective of everyone else in this country, because they have this fear that everyone else is like them, these particular white supremacists, that they would then rule over, control, degrade, and abuse and take away the rights of them, because that's their outlook on life. they only see through their one lens, and that's white supremacy. So of course they assume there's Latino supremacy and there's black supremacy, and all of them will collectively come together and then dismantle and destroy their white supremacy just from existing. So therefore, that's why they're a murderous group who does nothing else but complain and attack and then, create some bloodshed, that civil war that they've been talking about since forever. So those were the questions. Tim Kaine, in his line of questioning, Senator Tim Kaine, in his line of questioning towards this guy, actually took for the idea of maybe debating him a bit and showing all the holes in his argument. I enjoyed that too.
One of the things you said was American whites are victims of a cultural genocide. Where to start? So you'd agree with me, wouldn't you, that whites are pretty well represented in the United States Senate?
They are well represented in this body, yes.
And how about in the House of Representatives?
Senator Kaine, I don't have those particular numbers. However,
but you would agree that they're pretty well represented in the House of Representatives.
Senator, I would, again, thank you for the question. I would point out that there were no white Protestants by birth in the 25 cabinet members under Joe Biden.
How about in the ranks of American presidents throughout history, including now pretty well represented whites?
Senator.
And how about in the ranks of vice presidents during American history now? Whites pretty well represented in that group, right?
Senator, thank you again for the question.
Yeah. I don't think it's hard. How about on the United States Supreme Court? Throughout our history and including now, whites are pretty well represented on the United States Supreme Court, correct?
I think obviously historically, I would of course agree with you. Of course, the vast majority of Americans were white at that time. It's now a much more diverse society.
Let's focus on right now. How about in the ranks of American governors? You think whites are pretty well represented?
I would just have to look at the numbers. I don't know.
Okay, how about this? In the ranks of CEOs of major corporations today, you think whites are pretty well represented?
Senator, thank you for the question. I suspect that they are probably pretty well represented in that, but there are other areas where they're not as well.
How about in the ranks of high income people? And we can define it however you want. Let's just say like top 10% of wealthy Americans. You think whites are pretty well represented?
Senator, thank you for the question. They would certainly be underrepresented with respect to Asian Americans, but they would be overrepresented with respect to other groups.
Man, it's kind of like Shameless, as you see your argument getting dismantled right in front of you and how bad it is and how it looks. These were the reasons why, even though these beliefs have always been in place, they've always been implemented in this society, yes, in this country since its origins, and have continued on. It's just morphed into many different ways of hiding it. They're so tired of hiding it. We're in the age of information. We're in the age of exposure. We're in the age of more people having access to more knowledge and connections to others who can, debunk this BS. And since we're in that age, they no longer have any rocks to hide under. So they're like, okay, fuck it. Let's just say it. Yes, we're white supremacists. Yes, we want to limit your rights. Yes, we think we're better than you. And also, we also think that your culture is subhuman and you should die if we want you to die. You shouldn't have any rights in this country. That's what they believe. That's why they're implementing and trying to put in people like this guy. And after all that's being said and done, all of their beliefs and all the things that they say about someone else and the victimhood complex they say other folks have is actually what they've got. Tim Kaine nails him down on that too.
Yeah. A cultural genocide, that's a stiff claim. And it's an interesting one because it's kind of a white victimhood argument. But if I remember my colleague, Senator Rosen, she was reading comments to you where you had been saying, man, Jews play the victim. Jews like to be the victim. And yet you're making a claim that whites are victimized by a cultural genocide when all the statistics would say, not just in history, but today, that whites are very well represented at every level of every institution. They're very well represented in the incomes of Americans. And that doesn't mean each person is high income or each person is a Supreme Court justice, but you could look institution after institution in this country, and the facts completely rebut the notion that whites are victimized by a cultural genocide.
Weakness. I mean, it's self-admitted weakness. So as they say, everyone else has these grievances over nothing. They have these grievances literally over some things, a few couple things, becoming more equal for others in this country. And they rant, they rave, they cry, they kick, and they scream about Bad Bunny. There's elected officials that are talking about investigations into Bad Bunny and his lyrics. Quite easily, the weakest, calling themselves the most powerful country in the world, the weakest group of people leading it. I've ever seen. And of course, it was like that always before. That's why the acronym is Make America Great Again. What they want to bring us back to is, the weakest folks ever having full and total control over everyone else. But it was a type of confirmation hearing and question and answer that was pretty it exposed the guy. So much so that there's a couple Republicans that are like, no, no, thank you. One of them is Republican Senator John Curtis from Utah. He said in a statement after that Foreign Relations Committee confirmation hearing just on Thursday that he would not support Carl's nomination for Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations anymore. Here's his quote. After reviewing his record and participating in today's hearing, I do not believe that Jeremy Carl is the right person to represent our nation's best interests in international forums. And I find his anti-Israel views and insensitive remarks about the Jewish people unbecoming of the position for which he's been nominated. I mean, I wonder if the sentiment's going to spread to more folks, or if they're just going to say Donald Trump won the election, therefore he gets to have any white supremacists he wants in office. Here's a little bit more, because CNN was uncovering more things about this guy. Their K file here from CNN uncovered that back in September of last year, Carr deleted thousands of social media posts. Many of those demonstrated a history of inflammatory commentary, which included incendiary posts about race, claims that peaceful coexistence, I'll say it again, his claims about peaceful coexistence with Democrats is impossible, and even a call for a political opponent to face the death penalty. Are they fascists yet? Carl also repeatedly wrote about the Great Replacement, which is, of course, that conspiracy theory that posts there is a plot to intentionally bring non-white immigrants into Western countries to replace those white populations, like a white supremacist fascist would think. It's odd that it keeps happening like that. There was a moment that I was looking for in his back and forth with Cory Booker, because CNN also pointed this exchange out, and I think it's telling. The back end here. In this exchange also with Cory Booker, we saw a little bit of earlier, Carl said that he regretted some of his past comments about Jewish people, specifically about Jewish people. Here's a quote. I made some comments in interviews about minimizing the effect of the Holocaust that were absolutely wrong. Oh, wow. And I'm not going to sit here and defend them here. Oh, he's backpedaling a bit on his anti-Semitic views and his hatred towards people that were, murdered in the Holocaust. Here's a little bit more, though. This is the revealing part. However, when pressed on whether he regretted comments he's made about other races, Carl said that he was only echoing Donald Trump, that unity rather than diversity is a strength, which reveals the thought process from people like him and Donald Trump that you can't have diversity and unity at the same time, because white supremacists like him hate anyone else that doesn't look what they think looks and comes from the same places that they do. They have no idea about anything in this world or society. They're this tribal group who wants to stick together and attack and hate anyone else that isn't just like them. It's like a simple-minded creature. It's like the lowest level of mind thought process of humans in this world. And the sad part is there's way too many of them. But as I pointed out, it all connects from the bottom to the top. Donald Trump is in office. Donald Trump is being, carried by people who ran and put together Project 2025, which is full of people just like Jeremy Carl. They're just not in front of senators that are answering questions about his thoughts and his behaviors. They're not doing that, but they need a couple few there. And he did point out, damn it, I agree with Donald Trump. And that's why Donald Trump, as he's posting things about former presidents, specifically Barack Obama and also Michelle Obama, he's still on that same vein of what he posted. Remember that the video, the back end with the primates that he depicted them as? He's never going to let up off of it, because this is their belief system. Did you guys see his response to when someone asked him for the 5th time, are you going to pull back on that?
You posted the video from your account that included the Obamas?
No, I haven't. That was a video on, as you know, voter fraud, and fairly long video, and they had a little piece and had to do with the Lion King. It's been very well, it's been shown all over the place long before that was posted. But that was a very strong, and I'm sure you saw it, a very strong piece on voter fraud. And the piece that you're talking about was all over the place many times, I believe for years. Yeah, please.
That was his 30-second answer for no, there's no staffer being fired. No, like we hired them for this purpose. Remember, JD Vance, the vice president of the United States, also excused all of the quote unquote young Republicans whose email and text exchanges talked about all their, their horrific racist thoughts and tendencies. But that's what happens. Their mindsets then transfer into policy. That's why they want positions of power in the government. They're trying to make it a white supremacist government, which, largely it always has been. But then afterwards, what they want to do is bring those extreme thought processes back into the government to then make it normal. That's the plan. And they figure once people push back on that, we'll just start murdering them. We're vicious, savage creatures. That's what they do. Just wanted to point that out as we get started on a Friday. This energy drink is kicking in, bro. So anybody who just showed up, trust me, that video is going to be up later on the channel. It's pretty revealing about what it is that many people in this country have experienced and already know about how this country's made up and how its original sins and evils have always been in place and has always been pumping through the blood and the veins of the people who agree with the same stuff that the originators who believed in this same thought process always will believe in. So we'll keep that fight going. We'll make sure all that keeps happening. But let's shift gears. Like I said, tons to talk about. And man, this frantic energy that I got going, let's keep it rolling into this next one. Did you guys hear about how Tom Homan has this drawdown going on in Minnesota? Since they've got their fascists in the streets, their foot soldiers attacking American citizens. This is the thing. He's been asked now, since he's declared that drawdown with the softer tone that he was going with, he went on Laura Ingram's show and was asked a very direct question because now their white pride is being, punctured here, and he has to puff his chest back out and get back to the Tom Homan that we all know and hate.
Are you declaring victory tonight in Minnesota because the agitators are declaring victory too?
Well, I never expected for a moment that the politicians would, give President Trump or myself a win or the men and women of ICE a win. I knew that coming in. Even though we're drawing down resources, we still want to have hundreds of special agents here drawing down on the fraud here from the Semitic community and others. Those fraud investigations are going to continue until they're done. We're going to hold people responsible. We're also got investigators here doing the church investigation to include Don Lemon. We're not walking away from anything. We've achieved what we came here for. This is like any other surge operation. LA, it ended. Los Angeles, it ended. Charlotte, it ended. New Orleans, it ended. This is ending the surge, but we're not going away. And let me say this, over 800 flights a day land in St. Paul, Minnesota. If we need to come back, we'll come back.
That's weird. I remember Tim Waltz and a few other folks were slightly encouraged that Tom Homan, a true law enforcement professional, is going to be coming in to take the place of Greg Bovino, who was, a Nazi in the street, who was pushing for more violence and confrontations with American citizens, and also sweeping up and assaulting other folks, undocumented and documented immigrants. That was just their approach. But somehow Tom Homan, who came with this whole drawdown plan, is now, because Laura Ingraham set him up with that question of, these agitators, what's that? She said these agitators are declaring victory. What do you say? Or do you declare victory? It's like they want to keep fighting this war that they said that they're going to declare on the American people, and we're not supposed to see it as that war, but they'll keep talking about declaring victories. Let me give you guys a quick look into the softer tone and what he announced would happen. That is right before he said, F all that. What we're going to do is we're going to run around and do the same things wherever and whenever we want.
With that, and success that has been made addressing public safety threats and other priorities since this search operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation, Law enforcement officers drawn down from this surge operation will either return to their duty stations or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that.
And try to come off like he gives a damn, or as if they have this drawdown to stop the violence. What's always revealed is they're heading off somewhere else to commit the same crimes. He mentioned Los Angeles, Charlotte, New Orleans, wherever else that they've, invaded cities of, and said those drawdowns happen too. Maybe you should ask some folks in Los Angeles if that drawdown means much to the folks that they're still assaulting, they're still chasing down, and still rights they're still violating. It's happening all over the place. The purpose, as I said the other day, is these drawdowns leaves a presence like they're in a war where they still got their troops on the ground harassing, attacking, murdering civilians in the streets. It's supposed to stay, and eventually it's supposed to invade the entire country, wherever it is that they choose to send Donald Trump's troops to then attack more people. And he was saying it with that soft tone, but then when Laura Ingraham got him fired up, he went back to yelling and screaming, and a couple of those marbles dropped out of his mouth. He just couldn't help it. So I'm gonna give you guys more instances of what this guy actually is and what he really believes in. Notice something here about what he said he wants to do with American citizens and tracking them, all that stuff that they said that fascists do that they're not.
This job and these people who want to say follow ICE, and film ICE, you know what? You can protest; they have that right. But when you cross the line, and we've proven it, if you interfere or impede or assault an ICE officer, you will be prosecuted. And one thing I'm pushing for right now, Laura, we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are. Because as you said, a lot of these people, they say they're taking time off work to protest. I bet you a lot of them are calling in sick. I bet you a lot of their employers don't know what they're doing. But we're going to make sure everybody knows who they are. We're going to broadcast. They want to broadcast the ICE officer that was nearly killed all over the internet. We're going to broadcast every one of these people we arrest.
You notice something? I just talked about it yesterday, maybe the day before, but I think it was yesterday. Tom Homan tilting his head back, yucking it up with Laura Ingraham about how they're going to create a database. You want to be wise guys? Do you want to go out in the streets and practice your First Amendment rights? Do you want to protest for your rights as we continue to try and snatch them from you and attack you at the same time? We're going to put you in a database. Do you guys remember when Todd Lyons, the director, acting director, they call him, but the full director of ICE, was getting questioned about that database? It was weird. It's like they've been talking about it, even from the foot soldiers in the streets that he denied were taking part in this and threatening it, all the way up to Tom Homan, who Democrats in Minnesota, for some reason, were calling a professional law enforcement officer.
U.S. citizens today?
No, sir.
Those people practicing this First Amendment right, photos of them, data taken, they're not being placed in any kind of a database?
There is no database for protesters, sir.
One of your officers in Maine said to one of the individuals protesting, we're going to put your face in a little database. What does that mean? Do you have a little database of Americans?
No, sir, we don't.
Then what do you think your ICE agent was doing to this individual when he said those statements?
I can't speak for that individual, sir, but I can assure you there is no database that's tracking United States citizens.
Sir,
he can assure you. He has no idea what that ICE agent in the street was talking about. I ran that video of them the other day threatening folks with a database. There was a couple of them. What I missed, though, was it goes up to the top. Maybe Todd Lyons should have a meeting with Tom Homan about that same database that Tom Homan said that they've created in order to go after people that are disputing and pushing back and fighting for their rights. Because what you can't do in the United States of fascist America is, stand up for your rights. You can't protest. We've seen that from the president all the way down to the people on the streets. Why are we ignoring what we're watching right in front of us? Just because they deny something and then we see it in front of us doesn't mean that it's not happening. So check this out. Here's a couple of the times when they're held accountable for a couple few moments and exposed for what it is that we always know. From the streets of attacking folks to acting like there's no database, to also Tom Homan talking about that there's no surge coming back. We're not going to be infiltrating every American city that we don't like, that insults Donald Trump. What we've got is it always takes it down to also those detention centers, the ones that they won't allow any oversight to look into because they're murdering people. We heard it from that Irish immigrant who said that he feels like it's a modern day concentration camp and he doesn't know if he's going to die every day because they're killing people here. That's what he said. Also, a federal judge appointed by that same fascist president, Donald Trump, he made a mistake, I guess. She issued a sharply worded opinion Thursday, ruling that the administration had violated the constitutional rights of detainees at ICE facility in Minnesota and granted a temporary restraining order with strict new requirements for those ICE agents. Now, we're currently in the middle of this fight over funding for more Department of Homeland Security attacks on American citizens. Democrats apparently are currently still standing up to that. We'll see how long that goes. Who knows what kind of pressure could be coming. So Brazel is this judge. In Judge Brazel's 41-page ruling, she blasts ICE for the threadbare declarations without examples or evidence offered by the federal government's attorneys claiming that non-citizens detained at the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building were granted telephone access to their legal counsel. We already know that they're denying people their general normal rights when it comes to getting any kind of representation or contact with their families. More. Judge Brazel noted that the plaintiffs had provided ample and detailed evidence that the thousands of detainees at Whipple were systematically being denied access to their attorneys, but little submitted by those defendants from the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, people like Kristi Noem and Todd Lyons, that same guy who was just lying about the database that he says they don't have. It's like every time we hear their names, it's like every time they go into court, what we see and what we understand is that they're liars and they lose in court. And they're going to keep searching for these moments in court when they have a judge that's paid off enough or who believes in the same white supremacist screeds that they do that just might violate normalcy in this country and rule in their favor. But they keep losing. So next time they keep talking about how they're going to sue someone and I can't believe you said this about me and that's defamation, you keep losing in court because on the facts, you keep losing. I'm running a little bit of this because this stuck out to me. This woman in particular, Miramar Martinez up in Chicago, I've run her multiple times. She was talking with CNN after she was shot at the attempted murder of her from this ICE official. This is back last, I believe, September. It was, some point in the middle of the year. She's told her story. She survived the attack. And we've seen the video of the ICE agent doing exactly what it is that she claimed and accused him of doing. Yet we hadn't seen this angle. So as we see people like Tom Homan and Todd Lyons say that everything's on the up and up, when we see body cam evidence from the face and bodies of these Gestapo members, of these fascists in the streets, what you'll see is that they're doing exactly what it is that they're being accused of.
Cameras on. This is newly released body camera video. A team of 3 Border Patrol agents is driving through a Southside Chicago neighborhood. 2 have guns drawn. Marimar Martinez, an American citizen and school teacher, is driving next to them, honking her horn, warning people to the presence of federal immigration enforcement. Another vehicle is behind the agents, also honking the horn.
All right, it's time to get aggressive and get the out because they're trying to box us in.
It all happens in seconds.
All right, you're fine, man. All right, out of the car.
Be advised, we've been struck. We've been struck.
Martinez was shot 5 times and survived. In this surveillance video, you can see the front of the agent's SUV come to a stop. 4 seconds later, Martinez's silver Nissan drives off, she says, fearing for her life. The Department of Homeland Security was quick to accuse her of attacking federal law enforcement, saying Border Patrol agents were, quote, ambushed by domestic terrorists that rammed federal agents with their vehicles. FBI Director Kash Patel posted on social media about the incident, quote, attack our law enforcement and this FBI will find you and bring you to justice. The post also included a link to video of a car ramming, but it had no connection to Martinez's case. And the body camera video tells a different story. In the lead up to the collision, you hear agents say they are going to collide with Martinez.
We're going to make contact and we're boxed in.
And just before the moment of impact, it's Agent Charles Exum who sharply turns his steering wheel in the direction of Martinez. Proof, according to her attorney, that they hit her vehicle, not the other way around. And as for the claim of being boxed in, this surveillance video calls that comment into question, with nothing in the path ahead of the border agent's vehicle. The court also released text messages and emails from after the shooting, including one message from Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino, just hours after the incident, offering to delay the retirement of Agent Exum, who shot Martinez. In light of your excellent service in Chicago, you have much left to do. And then a text message exchange between Agent Exum and someone whose name was redacted. Are they supportive? Someone asked. Big time. Everyone has been, including Chief Bovino, Chief Banks, Secretary Noem, and El Jefe himself. In various texts to and from fellow agents, the mood was celebratory. Good job, brother. You are a legend among agents. You better effing know that. Beers on me when I see you at training. That's awesome. You did real good. Damn it, man. Good shooting. The day after the shooting, Martinez was indicted. According to the complaint, she, quote, forcibly assaulted, resisted, opposed, impeded, intimidated, and interfered with an officer of the United States. After her attorney viewed the body camera footage and other evidence emerged that undermined the government's version of events, prosecutors made an extraordinary move and asked the judge to drop their own case. The judge agreed, but not long after, she told me the shooting still haunts her.
I don't want to remember that.
I just think it's important. We see the lies. We see them talking about the next steps they're going to take. We see them talking about how the drawdown is happening. That is right before they talk about how they're not going to draw down much at all if they feel like running back up in there. Greg Bovino is the same type of person that Tom Homan is, who is the same type of person as Todd Lyons is, who's the same type of person as Stephen Miller is, who's the same type of person as Donald Trump is, and all the people that are behind the scenes whose names aren't listed every day about their white supremacist screed and their attacks on this country and the lies that they're willing to tell, from the Department of Homeland Security to the FBI, to all of them coinciding to try and uplift and bring forward this white supremacist government. It's who they are. It's who they've always been. And these types of actions have always happened to certain people in this country. And when they happen to others, or we see videos of it, all they do is say, don't you guys remember? We've been conditioning you to hate anyone that we tell you to hate. And it definitely isn't all of these white folks who continue to carry out more of these crimes. We'll just say, that's okay. It's those, dirty immigrants that are doing all the crime. Zero evidence. We see how we keep seeing the evidence coming the other direction. Thanks you guys for being here. If you showed up a little bit late, man, these first two stories, I think they're really good. They're just, anger inducing. That's all. The next one I want to talk about here, though, it might give you a little bit of joy. I'm a couple days late on it, actually. I can't believe I didn't see this the day it happened. It was earlier this week when this announcement was made. It's a bit of a flashback about what it is that we talked about, late last year. It was fun, though. It was actually something that made people stand up and cheer. And man, I thought it was going to end badly for the hero in this story. It ended up being pretty decent. Here, check this out. This is the vice president of the UAW. Her name is Laura Dickerson.
As most of you probably know, in January, Donald Trump visited the Ford Dearborn truck plant, Local 600. And as you all also probably know, there was a worker at that plant that day who famously told Mr. Trump exactly what he thought of him. Unfortunately, in that moment, we saw what the current president really thinks about working people in the way he responded. He gave us the middle finger. And he said some other vulgar words that I won't repeat here today. He said you twice. He also said, you're fired. Well, this ain't The Apprentice.
UAW Vice President Laura Dickerson pointed out that man who apparently, as we all saw in video, not apparently, completely did, shouted a couple of words at Donald Trump, and man, Donald Trump didn't like it. In case you guys missed it, in case you've been living under a rock, I just want to replay that for you. This is where it all started. I'm sorry, it wasn't last year. It was actually in January, as I heard her point out. As Laura Dickerson said, this ain't The Apprentice, bro. So that's not going to happen. Let her give more details of why she said this ain't The Apprentice, and your calls to getting this man fired aren't going to work. Let's let her finish up.
It took a lot of courage for that worker, TJ Sabula, to speak his mind to the most powerful person in the world. TJ, we got your back. Now, TJ is well aware that the UAW has his back and supported him in his beliefs. Freedom of speech is real. Now, I, as the vice president over the Ford department, can tell you TJ has got his job. And more importantly, TJ has no discipline on his record. That's right. That's right. And that's what we do best. We represent.
Good on Laura Dickerson. It was TJ, wasn't TJ Sabula was the man apparently who told Donald Trump who he is, who immediately it got under his skin. So again, I just want to give you guys more background on what has that happened, because some of his quotes were awesome too. Once I reread them, I was like, that's right, he did say that. Here's more, because on this particular story, the updates here. Laura Dickerson, as I've been pointing out, she's the vice president of UAW and head of the union's Ford department. Specifically, she said, we'll ensure that our member receives the full protection of all negotiated contract language, safeguarding his job and his rights as a union member. More quotes from her. Workers should never be subjected to vulgar language or behavior by anyone, including the president of the United States. It's like we need to break through these barriers of feeling like these guys get to do whatever they want and say anything they want to folks who have the right to say whatever they want. At the time, though, what Stephen Chung, who's the vice president, who's the White House communications director, said, only Donald Trump gets that free speech. Because he said what happened was actually authentic. They confirmed it. He said a lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage, and the president gave an appropriate and unambiguous response. Well, good. I'm glad that Laura Dickerson gave an unambiguous response to his call to get this guy fired, or his hate towards him, or the FUs that he tossed around. A little bit more, because this was the quotes from TJ Sabula at the time. He says, as far as calling him out, definitely no regrets whatsoever, though he added that he is concerned about the future of his job, which he no longer has to be concerned about. And he believes he's been targeted for political retribution for, quote, embarrassing Trump in front of his friends. Those important guys at the top of Ford who, were probably on board with trying to disrupt this guy's life. So for the folks who probably thought he was this radical leftist lib, Sabula identifies as politically independent and said he never voted for Trump, but has supported other Republicans. He estimated that he was roughly 60 feet away from Trump on that day, that the president could hear him very, very, very clearly. And he says, I don't feel as though fate looks upon you often. And when it does, you better be ready to seize the opportunity. And today, I think I did that. Even on the day of when he was getting suspended, I think they said with pay at the time, while they tried to sift through all this and decide what to do with him. And when that happened, people, of course, I was one of them that assumed the guy was going to get fired. But maybe, as he pointed out, sometimes you get this little glimpse of opportunity, and man, you better take it when you got it. Except what may piss off people a little bit more, people that were against this guy and also for Donald Trump's pedophile protection, was at the time there was also a GoFundMe that was set up. And I remember days after this happened, they said he had already raised 150,000 or so. Apparently it got up to $800,000 for TJ Sabula. I assume he gets to keep that, whatever percentage of it goes to him. I don't know how these GoFundMes work as far as what kind of funding comes down to the person who's the recipient of said fundraiser. But if it all shakes out the way that's being reported, TJ Sabula, $800,000 or whatever portion of that richer, keeps his job, wins this battle back and forth with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has to go back to what everyone is seeing him as more and more of these files get exposed, and that is a pedophile protector. only because he is, along with everyone else. Which brings me to the last story. Donald Trump, said pedophile protector who lost this battle back and forth with just this Ford worker. Let's talk about one of those potential pedophiles that he's looking to protect. Why don't we do that? I want to start with this. Do you guys know who Jess Staley is? Jess Staley is a rich and powerful guy. I think he's a big named guy with Barclays Banking. This was now we've been going through the Epstein files. This was an email that has been highlighted and resurfaced from Jess Staley to one Jeffrey Epstein. That is about how happy they are, the way society is treating them. Here, it reads from Jess Staley. You want to know why we're not Sao Paulo? Watch the TV ads on the Super Bowl. It's all about hip blacks in hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by Jay-Z. Signed, Jess Staley, Blue Mountain Capital. That email is from 2014, apparently back when there was blacks at the Super Bowl with white women in the cars, hip blacks, apparently in hip cars, while these white women were there, and people were too busy being distracted by all that hip hop for them to then take to the streets like he knows Americans should. So if in case we're wondering, every time there's all of these outrages and pearl clutchings over people saying eat the rich, tax the rich, F the rich, and they go, how dare you, that's so un-American. What they're saying is let's suppress this uprising that we figure we can continue to siphon more money from the American people for our greedy ass and pedophile pockets, while they then go and keep dancing and singing and buying anything else they want. It's about this retail life that so many Americans got. It's allowing them to do this. Here's some more details, though. Business Insider pointed out how, as this resurfaces, more details of where this is coming from. So a June 2010 email contained the latest tranche of documents released by the Justice Department, and it shows the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as we're all talking about, asking for an unidentified person to get a costume of the beloved Disney character Snow White. Here's the quote that Epstein wrote. I would love to take photos of you in a Snow White costume. You can get it from the costume store. Keep your mind on Jess Staley as we go through these emails back and forth, because this is what happened. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted, child sex trafficker. A few weeks later, ex-Barclays CEO Jess Staley, the same guy who said all those blacks in hip cars with white women are keeping people distracted from taking to the streets, Jess Staley sent an email to Epstein, whom he had known for years, and he said, quote, that was fun. Say hi to Snow White. Epstein responded, what character would you like next? And then when Staley said Beauty and the Beast, Epstein replied, well, one side is available. More rape. It's so wonderful. These things are being exposed. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are things that the Justice Department and the FBI and all of them reluctantly have been released to the general public. It's just there's millions of them. We have to sift through it and find most disgusting things. Here's more. Also in July of 2010, an unknown person emailed Epstein with the cryptic comment, the Snow White was effed twice as soon as she put on her costume. It's not known if there's any connection between the various references to Snow White and Jess Staley, or if that's just something that was just him and Disney characters that he liked to assault, according to these emails from him to the well-known and convicted and murdered child sex trafficker in jail. So when he was specifically asked about these things, again, none of this stuff is just being generated from someone making it up. These are from all the case files and the things that we're seeing of evidence that they wanted to continue to hide and cover up. During court proceedings later, years later after this, Staley was asked whether he remembered referring to any women accompanying Epstein as Disney characters or princesses, or identifying specific individuals as Snow White. And then instead, the former Barclays chief replied, no. I mean, maybe he figured that's all he needed to say to get off the hook, because they're above the law, because people haven't taken to the streets yet to come after these sorry sons of bitches. Here's what he finished off by saying, I honest to God Well, when I went through the emails, I have no idea what this refers to. I have no idea who Snow White is. I have no idea. No one's ever heard of Snow White. I think your lie just went a little bit too far over the top there. This is one of the very small instances of the number of people that are being revealed, exposed, and we're now seeing should be, investigated from these files that they really, really didn't want to let go of. Marjorie Taylor Greene, former Donald Trump acolyte and good buddy of his, even said before Donald Trump, when he screamed at me over this, what he screamed at me was that this is going to hurt my friends. Is Jess Staley one of those friends that he's worried about being hurt by this whole thing? It just might be, or might be tons more others. So let me show you guys why Jess Staley's email talking about how people haven't taken to the streets because they're being, distracted by everything else. Why he says it, because we've seen for years victims, survivors, folks that had seen and heard who weren't even necessarily directly connected to all the victims, how they came out and have been trying to tell these stories for years. One of them is Maria Farmer. I've run her video before. She's told the story before she got on MSNBC to talk about it. But this was her appearance on MSNBC where she did talk about her direct interactions with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump and how disgusting it was and how revealing it really was. But we haven't taken to the streets yet.
You've heard Jeffrey Epstein say to Donald Trump, she's not for you. What was your reaction to that? What was going on in your head at the time about that? What did you think that meant?
Right. Well, I already felt kind of intimidated because it was in a dark office and I was alone with my new boss, to be, and this man that's a powerful businessman. And so I felt intimidated, but that's not why I reported him. I reported him because when Epstein came out of the office, I was making a face at him because I felt threatened. And so I went, and he kind of laughed and backed off. And as that was happening, Epstein walked out and said, oh, no, she's not here for you. And he emphasized, she's not here for you. And he said, come with me. And he escorted him into another office. And I was like, who's in there? And when he said, oh, I thought she was 16, I thought, is there a 16-year-old in there? Right? So what people need to understand is I'm not some crazy person who just reports people if they look at my legs or I'm in an office with them. But when someone is hanging out with a convicted or a pedophile, and I discover that pedophile has stolen my little sister, and then there's a powerful businessman that's making comments about me being my sister's age, then I think that the FBI needs to take a good look at it. And so that's why I asked that they do that.
She asked, but her requests were pushed back on. They were rejected. They wanted nothing to do with looking into what it is that she accused, what stories that she told, or really what any of the rest of the survivors' stories have been told. We saw it explicitly highlighted just the other day when Pam Bondi had the opportunity to address the survivors that were in the room during her contentious hearing, in front of Congress, where they asked her about all this, and she kept her face down, had a smug look on her face, and could have potentially given middle fingers to these survivors standing behind her, talking about how they've been trying to give their evidence and been trying to tell their stories to authorities for decades, and they just won't listen. So maybe if we're not listening, maybe we should look a little bit. Because check this out. From this account, Amber Woods, who calls herself an investigative journalist, a trauma-drenched and survivor-focused account. She highlights so many of these things, and I think we should glance at them together because these things have been out there for a long time, but we're too busy being distracted as what's this guy's name again? As Jess Staley was pointing out, we're too busy being distracted. So you guys see this. Look. This is Maria Farmer, as she was posted here. She's a Jeffrey Epstein survivor who paints portraits of other Epstein survivors so that no one would ever forget about them. I didn't know she does this. I had no idea. And like I said, I've seen parts of her story. I've seen her try and tell her story on multiple different outlets, not just MSNBC. Let's peruse a couple of her art pieces and who they might show. One of them being Jess Staley in underwear. And as you see, there's lots of details in these images. He's got a a bouquet of flowers hidden behind his back. He's shushing in front of himself. There's money on the bed. It says Chase, J.P. Morgan, other connections that he's had. And off with this mirror image of what you might see a young girl in a Snow White outfit. Wow. That's one of her portraits that she painted. It's creepy stuff, and actually she's talented in the way that she can sketch and put these things together. I'm not sure if it's a painting or if it's some kind of whatever different form of art. But that's Jess Staley, who has no accountability because we're too busy being distracted. Remember, that's what he said. That's what he said. But also, there's another video that I remember showing before too. Cindy McCain, widow of John McCain. You remember Senator John McCain, who also ran for president, who Donald Trump and he didn't like each other. You guys remember that she said this? Here's a compilation of people talking about what it is that we've been seeing in front of us that we've been ignoring because these rich elites are ready for us to ignore them and they're ready to keep us distracted. Do you guys remember when Cindy McCain said this?
It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing, but we had no one that was legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him.
The worst part was I named everybody. I named Donald Trump. I named everyone who I thought was a co-conspirator at the time. So I named Alan Dershowitz, Donald Trump, absolutely the Clintons. These are people that I saw coming and going that I knew were part of it.
And so I'm in his office and in walks Donald Trump. And he walks in and he's across from me, standing there kind of smirking and staring at my legs. And then Jeffrey walks in and he says, no, she's not here for you. And he signals them. And Donald Trump was in the other room.
Well, can you repeat what you heard Jeffrey Epstein say to...
She's not here for you.
She's not here for you. Jeffrey Epstein said this to Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
When you were
a slave. Yeah.
So that's incredible.
So Donald Trump goes, I've told every news network this. No one cares. I've told every news network all about the Wexners. You guys and Whitney Webb and a few people are going to tell the truth, but no one else is. And that's why I'm coming to you guys before I start chemotherapy on Friday. I never in a million years honestly thought it could be this man is doing something with children because he was so charming. And that was their thing. They were very charming. But I can tell you, Edward, all the people who knew him well knew darn well what he was doing. They all knew. The people in his black book, there's no way they did not know. There's no way. Because once I was around him enough, I figured it out. They figured it out. And they knew him for years.
She said that in New York, Ghislaine would go to these around the time school would get out, to middle schools. She would drive around and say that she was recruiting models for Victoria's Secret and would go up to all these 12-year-old girls with braces and stuff in school uniforms. But she almost always went to do this with Ivana Trump, Trump's ex-wife. And said that they were together all the time in this, going around in cars, talking to these young girls, and that they would exchange information. And the next day those girls would be in Epstein's office.
Isn't it weird? All those instances, all those accounts, all those stories being told could be easily written off as conspiracy theories, as a bunch of women trying to take down rich, powerful people because they're jealous of them. That's always the story that we get told. That is until we start to see all these instances that match up and actually give some confirmation to many of these stories in these files, the same files that Donald Trump has been fighting with every bit that he's got to keep from coming out. So I wonder what's left in the millions and millions that are left that they're still keeping from us. More confirmations of all the things that we already know. Odd how that works. Really weird how that works. I want to show you guys a couple more of these creepy artwork pieces from Maria Farmer. I'm almost done, you guys. I know we're almost at the top of the hour. We got a minute or two left. I want to show you guys a couple of these because it says so much. It says so much. Again, Amber Woods, I believe, is the account that does it. Amber Woods is the one that's posting a lot of these. But again, these are from Maria Farmer's artwork. There, it's a recognizable face covering the mouth of a young girl. Louis Freeh, former FBI director, Louis Freeh, Freeh, covering the mouth for her, making sure that she doesn't get a chance to speak. It's almost like she's pointing out that the cover-up goes all the way up to top law enforcement ever. And similar to what Cindy McCain was saying, he was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him, she said, and nobody could do anything. Everyone was afraid of doing something. There's another face that's recognizable in the form of a roach, a cockroach. That there is Alan Dershowitz, who's been very vocal about how he's been, done wrong, been accused wrong, and he's going to come for anybody who accuses him more of it. He wants the names of some of these accusers / victims / survivors. She also drew him up. There's so many details of these. It's hard to really break down and get into all of them in this quick form here. So please check it out again. It's from this particular woman's account, though. Here's more. I'm almost done, guys. I promise. Again, we started with Jess Staley. I keep wanting to call him Les Wexner because the names are kind of similar. But Jess Staley, remember his whole thing about Disney princesses? There's another art piece from Maria Farmer. If you guys have seen the movie The Shining, you notice that hallway scene with two twins standing at the end, dead. But in this particular case, she depicts the two twins as Snow White. We keep seeing the connections about the Disney princesses and the disgusting thing that we keep seeing that they said they're doing. Also that, Jess Staley said we're too distracted to pay any attention to. And so far, he's been right. I think it's about time we change that. Here's another. I think you guys can recognize who that is. First of all, the head and shoulders of Jeffrey Epstein with CIA written at his collar. And there's what depicts what appears to be, to me, is Bill Barr, shirtless, though, with his suit jacket on and his tie, leaning over. And there's images all behind him. You can see to his right, but left side of the screen for us, that looks like a blonde Donald Trump shaking his hand with someone. Also, a young Jeffrey Epstein off to the right side of the screen. There's so many details in her artwork that is depicting what it is that happened, that she's seen, and the victims that have been silenced, including her, that we just don't pay enough attention to. So let me finish with this. I promise I'm done in a second. If you guys are about to take off, I promise I'm almost done. Happy Friday, everyone. But let's end with this sad video here. This one, I couldn't get who it was online who detailed some of these. But here's a full piece from Maria Farmer that I guess it encapsulates all the biggest names, the most evil people that she encountered. Look at some of the details of this art piece and see which faces you recognize and how she depicts them.
Does anyone remember watching Jeffrey Epstein's Filthy Rich documentary that came out on Netflix in 2020? And Maria Farmer, one of his first victims to report it to the FBI back in 1996, submitted this art piece. She said, as someone who has been abused by these people, the best way I can translate what happened is visually. Ever since I watched that documentary and I saw this, just looking at the painting, it tells you everything you need to know. And I mean, let's zoom in, but just take a moment to take it all in, because she is telling us everything right here. I'm trying to get out of the way so you can see everything, but I mean, there's this island, all these people. Look at, are they in hell or what is that? They're underground. Jeffrey's in a UFO, not human. They all look like they're connected through a serpent. I mean, reptilians, underground, DUMBs, underground bases. Denver airport doesn't seem so crazy anymore. Let's also talk about the underground tunnels that they found in the 80s with that preschool. But anyways, the DOJ and the FBI completely dismissed her case and didn't really give her a chance or believed her. They failed to investigate. But I mean, even in the documentary, they talk about how much Jeffrey Epstein paid the FBI, the police. I mean, they're all infiltrated, but he paid his way to silence. He silenced his victims. He silenced everybody. But anyway, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I wanted to bring this one back up because it says a lot. And I just hope Maria Farmer is getting her justice now.
We need the rest of society to help out getting justice for these survivors. Because as they keep asking for what we have in place is law enforcement to do something about it. Their job is to cover it up. Worse than you thought. And there's 3 million, a minimum, more documents, and we haven't even finished going through these millions. Think about that. Millions. All right. That's it. Happy Friday, everyone. If that's still possible after more knowledge and exposure of what's going on in our world and what we've always been, willing to ignore. I'm not willing to ignore it anymore. So enjoy your weekend. Hope you guys have a good Friday. As we go into the middle of the day, enjoy John Iadarola over on TDR. Tell all the moves. I believe Brett's on today. Tell them I say hey. Happy Friday. The Voodoo Grape, by the way, was really good. I just might do it again.